Good afternoon. I'm Shay Russell from mining.com.au. And today we have a very exciting webinar to show you where Johan Lambrechts, Johan Lambrechts, the CEO of Antares Metals, is going to take you through the compelling exploration copper and uranium opportunities in the Mount Isa region of Queensland. Johan, thank you so much for this presentation today. Please begin.
G'day, Shay. Thank you for having me once again. And don't worry about the name. I've been called significantly worse than John, I promise. So, everybody, thank you very much for joining us today. I've presented at several conferences, but I realize that not too many people, or not everybody, goes to conferences. And this is a way of sort of spreading the word to more of you. So thank you once again. I hope to entertain you as best as I can and not waste your time. So Antares Metals is a fairly new company. That's the disclaimer. Please read it at your leisure. I'll leave it on that slide for a minute while I say that we acquired these uranium and copper projects late last year. Before that, the company was called Nickel Search, but since a company called Nickel Search has no business exploring for copper and uranium, we thought it was important to change the name. Antares, by the way, is a binary star, which is also called a red giant. And we figured that it's prudent for a red giant to be exploring for the red metal. So that's a little bit of background as to where the name comes from. Now, Antares has several very exciting projects in the North Queensland area. We are obviously focusing on copper and uranium at this point. It's about 2,000 square kilometers, and it includes prospectivity for a whole suite of commodities: copper, gold, lead, zinc, and uranium, and any combination and iteration thereof. So we're very excited by the opportunities and the possibilities on the land. I'll be talking to the various copper prospects and projects that we've got during the presentation, as well as uranium. So perhaps it's time to jump into the rest of the company. So we have a three-man board. Mark Connolly is the non-exec chair. Needs no introduction, has had a wonderful career and a very successful one at that. Bruno and Richard joined us during the acquisition and bring with them a wealth of experience as a geologist and an accountant and corporate experience as well. And they've been in the junior exploration industry for some time and add a lot of value. Susie Foreman is our chief financial officer and company secretary, very important lady in the company. I'm a geologist also, worked in Africa and Australia, around Mount Isa area, various commodities and various positions. And Matt Porter is our most recent person to join the company. He's the exploration manager and brings with him a wealth of experience and knowledge in the Mount Isa area in uranium and copper, having worked for Sandfire and for Paladin, etc. Very important part of the team. Now, we are from a capital structure, a $4 million company or thereabouts. We've got just over 1.4 million as of the last quarter. And 45% of the company is held by the top 20 shareholders. 4% of that is board management, and Cumulus Wealth and Bacchus, as you can see there, 13 and 6.5% respectively. This is our copper portfolio. So I'm going to start initially I'm going to start talking sequentially pretty much as we were exploring when we started in very late sort of November, December last year. So I'll start with Surprise and then I'll move to the others. Now, Conglomerate Creek is a large-scale intrusion-related opportunity that we have. I'll also spend a little bit of time on that. And then Queen's Gift Uranium. So that has a JORC 2004 related resource. So there's some low-hanging fruits for us there with regards to drilling it and upgrading the resource. And today we released an announcement on some more uranium excitement, shall I say, at a prospect called Skevy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We'll start with Surprise. As I said, it is a historic copper mine. It produced at an average of about 10% copper per ton with up to 2 grams gold. We drilled this in very late November last year, and the idea was to validate the copper under the mine and to understand the geology a little bit better. We were successful in that. We intersected results. You can see bottom left of the screen there, 11 meters at 2%, 2 meters at 10%, 5 meters at 5%, and 4 meters at 4% as well. So definitely intersected the mineralization, but we knew from the onset that Surprise needs more. It needs to be bigger. We need to grow this thing. And that's why we completed a large geophysical survey over the top of it, 3D IP and some magnetics. And we identified targets further to the north and along strike, which we tested in May this year. Each target received, maybe the next slide shows you, yes, on the right of the screen there, you can see some of the targets that were identified. We tested each of them with one hole, the idea being that if we intersect any significant copper mineralization, we'll come back and do follow-up drilling. And we were successful. Just 200 meters north of the mine, we identified or intersected an interval 2 meters at just under 2% copper. But that's not standalone. And I mean that by saying it is beneath a 240 meter long outcropping host lithology, which has artisanal workings along the length of it. You can see the picture there with the gossamerous copper mineralization. That is from the surface near that drill hole. So we've got surface copper and we've got an intersection at 106 meter vertical depth. So that represents a fantastic extensional target, which is why, of course, that hole was drilled to the depth and not 20, 30 meters below surface, because it gives us a much larger target to grow. So with 106 meter deep intersection, we've got up dip potential, we've got strike potential, we've even got down dip potential. And should we drill this again, the intersection has, or that target has the potential to more than double the known copper mineralization area at Surprise. Then, so that's a very, very exciting target. It certainly has the potential to double what we know. The Marvel discovery up further north, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. We don't believe it's part of the Surprise mineralizing system per se, but obviously it is part of the same sort of conduit. It is a disseminated style target or prospect. We drilled a single hole into that to test the chargeability anomaly that we found there, and we ended up with about 80 meters worth of mineralization. Well, not mineralization, visible sulfide mineralization, which when we assayed it, this is a section, returned grades of up to almost 0.5% copper in some of the intervals. So this doesn't represent, as it stands, a resource at all. It simply represents a target which has been tested and proved that there is copper mineralization within that target and therefore justifies further drilling, which we will do at a later stage. But for now, the company has decided that drilling Surprise isn't something we'll do this year. We'll probably postpone that a little bit. The response for the results at Surprise has shown us that perhaps we should focus on other targets, which is what we've done. You will have seen through our ASX announcements that we've done a fair bit of work through the rest of our project area. So Startle sits a few kilometers to the northeast of Surprise and isn't part of the same structure, but is part of the same sort of regional geological setting. We've only been to this location once or twice, and not a lot of work has been done here. The first visit was simply to identify mineralization, to see the geology, and to determine the prospectivity of the target. And as you can see there from the photographs, we were fortunate enough to find some very well copper mineralized areas. It's structurally controlled for the most part, but there are some siltstones, some sediments with copper mineralization in them off to the west there. And to the east, the samples there around ASR 29, that is a different host altogether. It's a calc-silicate with a larger proportion of copper-bearing minerals in the rock. So there's a lot more work to be done here at surface, and the prospectivity is really good because there's a large strike there that can be explored, which we will do in the future, and it adds to this northeastern portion of our tenure. I'll go to Conglomerate Creek. This is, in my view, a very special and potentially substantial target. This was identified through geophysical work, magnetic and gravity survey, which was completed by the company late last year. And we identified the intrusions you see on the map there. Clear semicircular intrusion on the left is the main one, and then the secondary intrusion off to the northeast. It's about 2 by 2 odd kilometers, and above it, along the periphery, there are some chargeability high anomalies, which I think excite me very, very much. The map on the right there shows these anomalies. The yellow targets are gravity highs. The red blobs, I shall say, they are magnetic highs. And the important geological part here is that the gravity high and magnetic highs, they share the same sort of space, and they are associated with structure, either the structure that bounds the intrusion or that one main structure that runs through the center of it. The intrusion itself is a magnetic and gravity low, so the association of magnetic low with magnetic high along the structure in the same general area shows me that there was fluid flow, because we've had various pulses, some removing magnetic minerals and other depositing them. So fantastic geological story in this area, and certainly justifies a lot more work and drilling. These targets lie at about 200, maybe 250 meters deep. They don't outcrop, they don't daylight, so drilling will be the best answer. But we also needed to investigate the mineralization potential at surface as best as we can before we just drill. So to do that, we explored the area around it, went for a walk quite literally, and mapped and sampled and took note of what we saw. And in that rectangular area to the sort of top right left, top right hand side of the image, you see the 450 meter long quartz vein that was mapped. That is mineralized along its length pretty much. In areas it's a very wide single vein, in other areas it's multiple thinner veins, but the rocks there in the images show you that they're pretty well mineralized, which to us substantiates the geological story. We've got a heat source in the intrusion at depth. We believe it is mineralized, or it has copper and metal mineralization. The convection created by the heat is coming up the plumbing, which is the structure, and we are seeing evidence of that at surface. So we collected some samples, and this was the result. On the left, the vein exposure, you can see there 22% copper, 1.6 gram gold, and almost 400 gram per ton silver, sample number 51 there on the left. But then there is 9%, 1.42, and 1.5% copper as well. So the mineralization exists. This area has never been drilled. We are doing the first major exploration here, other than some surface geochemistry. So that is a standalone target in its own right, being 450 meters long with copper and gold and silver mineralization. But then the right-hand image shows you sample number 37, which is over that central target, which coincides with the structure that runs through them. 1.1% copper, 7.5 gram per ton gold, and 50 gram per ton silver. And next door to that, or near that, 2.8 copper with some gold and some silver. So clearly the area, the intrusion, the area, the subsurface area is mineralized, and those minerals are making their way to surface along the structure, perhaps, because that's where we are finding them at surface. Conglomerate Creek, the story is shaping up to be very comprehensive from a geological perspective, and therefore this one will be drill tested. We plan to drill test this in the near future, actually, but we've decided to move that to early next year. The reason being, the Queensland government have a a system whereby they assist junior explorers in their drilling activities, provided we put an application in and we can sell the story to them well enough. So part of the reason why we did all the surface work to understand the geology is to be able to put forward an application to the Queensland government for assistance with this drilling program. We believe it is a compelling target with strong geological information and evidence backing the application, and therefore the application's open in a month or two. We will submit one. The winners are awarded or are made known early next year, and we'll be drilling it soon after that. Hopefully we will have received the award and the assistance from the Queensland government, but if not, this remains a target, and then we will just drill it alone. But we believe it adds the most value to our investors to go about it this way, get some support, so that when we do drill it, we can put together a better drill plan, a larger drill plan, and give ourselves the best chance of success at Conglomerate Creek. Moonside is the next target. Now, this one was released not long ago. It is to the southeast of Moonside, excuse me, and it represents some shallow artisanal workings. You can see from the map there, 240 meters long, and there's some really good grades in there, you know, almost 6%, 16%. It is mineralized along its length to some degree or another, and then it disappears along strike undercover. So we've done a soil survey to the north of the image that you see there to see if these mineralized structures keep going further. When we have those results back, we will certainly notify the market. But we've identified during our field activities there several other mineralized vein sets which seem to radiate from a central point, which might indicate a slightly larger system. So we'll definitely be exploring this more. The grade you can see from the image on the left there, the grade there and the sort of the look of the rock represents or has real similarities to Surprise, actually. Except in the northern area, we've got that breccia, which is a little bit different, and another pretty important and potentially exciting development in the geological story of Moonside. Calton Hills, I won't dwell too much on because we haven't done much work here, but this is a truly exciting target. It was identified by Rio Tinto geologists a long time ago. They drilled a few holes and identified what they called, or in their logs, it said it has the hallmarks of a large hydrothermal system. And one of the holes particularly, you'll see the third last bullet point there. It says deep weathering greater than 200 meters with intense bleaching and weathered sulfides. That to me is a crucial statement, a crucial point to know for this area, because having worked on George Fisher, it represents something that they call the bommel, which is part of the mineralizing system there associated with the structure. Really high grade mineralization, but require different mining methods. So the fact that that log exists, more than 200 meters worth of intense bleaching and sulfides, that tells me that we are very likely close to a larger system there, close to a mineralizing event. And geophysics will be the first pass work that we do there. And that's in the pipeline for probably early next year. Now, we have other prospects as well. Julius is one that I'll only briefly touch on. We've mentioned it in the acquisition document and so on. There's some really good historical rock chips, as you can see at the top there. During our due diligence, we picked up an almost 40% rock. It is associated initially with an east-west breccia, but we've had some geos out in the field there, and there'll be some updates on the geology over Julius. I think that has potential to be a very exciting addition to our project suite as well. And Mount Isa North, being just north of George Fisher, lots of work there still to be done. You might ask, I suppose, why the perceived scattergun approach. It's not a scattergun approach at all. This is our first season in the field in Mount Isa, and it's 2,000 square kilometers. So we believe the wrong approach would be to focus on one prospect, say Surprise, because that was the first one that we actually drilled. and not to do the legwork on the other prospects to identify their prospectivity in reality by doing geology in the field, mapping, breaking rocks, etc. So by evaluating the larger tenement suite, we can rank and rate all the various prospects that are known to us and come up in this first season with a proper ranking of the top 3, 4, 5 projects after having actually done the work, considering again that this is our first season. And then we can focus our time and effort and spend effectively and appropriately to try and give the best value for money to ourselves and our investors. So that's just a brief explanation as to why we're looking at so many prospects. It's not because we don't know where we have to go. It's because this is the first season and we need to be able to rank everything that we've got so that we can then focus. You can't rank if you haven't been to a place, I suppose, is the crux of that point. But on top of copper, we also have a fantastic uranium portfolio. So in February this year, we released, or we had completed a uranium prospectivity review, which was done by Riviera Minerals, and they've got 40 years experience in uranium mining and exploration. And they identified 49 targets on our tenure, extremely good uranium prospectivity through geology, through radiometrics, through the structures. So we know that we've got some fantastic uranium prospectivity on our tenure. We are fortunate, you can see from that map there, that we surround the Valhalla uranium project by Paladin Energy, which is the 3rd largest uranium resource in the country. So we're very fortunate to have the land in this area, and there are several other prospects that require a looking. So the next slide, I suppose, gives a little bit more detail to what we've got. Our Queen's Gift prospect has a JORC 2004 resource of just under 2 million pounds at 330. So that, of course, is low-hanging fruit because that resource is open in multiple directions and is a walk-up drill target. So we are considering drilling that prospect, which will also then allow us to update that resource to 2012 compliant resource and advance the project. For sure, this is an important aspect on our to-do list. But we have other prospects as well. I'll just read through Skevy there, which is the 3rd project on the left there. You'll see 4 meters at almost 1500 ppm U3O8. We released an announcement today, which I'll cover in the next slide, which identifies Skevy as another potential drill target. There are others on the southeast there, Agave 3, A29B, and so on. Weird names, I know. We'll change them once we rank them and decide to give more impetus to them. But for now, that's what they called, and there's some fantastic rock results there. So lots of target for us to go through. You can see the Queen's Gift significantly deceps. There's some pretty good uranium there, and therefore it is certainly a fantastic target for us to spend more time and energy on and try to add value to our shareholders and to the company. This is today's announcement specifically on Skevy. Now, Skevy was drilled in 2012 and 2013 by Regal Point Resources, and you can see the intercepts there. The key is it runs over a few hundred meters, but then it disappears under colluvium cover. So it already has a fairly low radiometric signature because it doesn't outcrop per se. It is buried under a shallow sort of cover, but the drill intercepts show that there is good uranium. You can see from the rock results. So where it does outcrop in that area, 1300, 1600, 3000, 5500 ppm U3O8. There's certainly some good uranium in the ground, and the drill intercepts at depth show some good results as well, which require follow-up. We will be going to Skevy to investigate this more, to look at the strike extensions, and as I said, it does represent a drill target, and we will budget that in to the near future. The table there, it's all in the announcement from today. Some really good results. And then there was an U4A, which is a prospect not too far from Queen's Gift, just to the southeast of Queen's Gift. An anomaly which has got a very high radiometric signature on the uranium channel. But when we investigated this with the spectrometer, the thorium values were specifically very, very high. And when I say high, I mean like an order of magnitude more than any of the other uranium prospects in the area. So that's a why is this the case question that we need to ask. But the uranium results were pretty good as well, 300 ppm uranium. So certainly a target that's worth exploring, and we will spend some more time there, pretty close to Queen's Gift, and associated with all the key indicators of the uranium mineralization in the area, which is associated with structures, often not the main primary Mount Isa fault and so on, but with first order structures or second order structures that come from them splays, plus the right geology. And of course, we've got the uranium, the radiometric signature. So lots of work to be done on the uranium space. At this point, we believe we've got a well-rounded target portfolio, and we've got a proven track record of having delivered field results to build to generate and to work up targets and turn them into drill targets. That is all of our targets discussed today. We are an explorer, as you've seen from our activities. We spend our time and money in the field. We got an exceptional geological team that's doing some great work. I'm hoping to, at the end of this season, to have a strong list of ranked targets that we can focus on already during the end of this season, but also then very definitely into the next seasons and into the future. So that's Antares. Thank you for your time, for listening. Thank you for your support on the share market. I believe we represent fantastic potential, and we'll be keeping you posted as best as we can as we get more results and as we do more work. Thanks, Shay.
My pleasure. Johan, you joked you were going to take 29 minutes and you almost did. Now, to kick off the second part of today's webinar, it's actually time for everybody watching. You are welcome to submit a question, either be it via YouTube in the comments or LinkedIn, or you can drop one in the chat wherever you're watching this. I was meant to let everybody know at the start of today's conversation. However, Johan, lucky here at this end, you have a curious mind, and I have a long list of questions for you. So good luck to anybody getting in. First thing I actually do want to kick off, and I feel like we can't ignore this subject, is you're talking about exploring for uranium in Queensland. Now, I know there are a couple of uranium explorers in Queensland, and you are near the Valhalla project, which I will touch on shortly. But how are you looking for a mineral that the government in Queensland doesn't allow extraction of yet? Why are you bringing this now? Why are you not waiting for that law to change?
I believe that mindset will change, and I believe the change is already happening. A few months ago, I don't know the details of this, but the Westmoreland project was offered or was given the ability to start work on some of the construction aspects of the uranium project that they have up there. It's best to go and Google the details. I don't know them, but that is already showing commitment from the Queensland government on one of the major uranium projects in the area to start building momentum. Then I received an email yesterday notifying me that the Queensland government is ready to open the channels of communication with the industry, trying to understand the industry's perspective of uranium mining and exploration in Queensland, something that they haven't done for a long time now. So I've certainly indicated that I'd like to be part of that conversation. To me, it shows that the Queensland government realizes the extreme potential of uranium for the state. And whether they support it or not is not for me to decide, but I believe that the tide is rising and is probably changing. I'm confident that it will change. I mean, Queensland has the ability to be in the forefront of world uranium. Australia most definitely can be at the forefront of the world uranium play. We got a lot of it. We're a stable jurisdiction. So I think the narrative has the chance to change, and it's already starting to show that it might, sooner rather than later.
Alrighty, before we kick off to the next lot of questions, did you want to end your presentation now? So just take it off the screen so we can get more into the Q&A?
Let's do that. Stop
Yes.
sharing. That's the button.
All right. That way now everybody has the big version of your head rather than the little version of your head. All right. We've got a couple of questions filtering through. So I will get to some of the questions coming from the audience in just a moment. But I think the second follow-up here needs to be, you've got Valhalla in the region. Now, why is having Valhalla in the region important? What does this indicate to people listening?
Well, as I said, it is the third largest uranium deposit in Australia. And why it's important to us is its geology. Its size, of course, yes, and it's great. But there's been a lot of studies done on Valhalla by some really clever people. And the geological setting for Valhalla, the geological components of that setting are repeated across our tenure in multiple areas along the Mount Isa fault and others. So I mentioned earlier, a few of the characteristics is they're always structurally controlled. That's important to us. The radiometric signature is one aspect. The Cromwell metabasalts is not a 100% success rate, meaning some of the deposits that have been found are not in the Cromwell metabasalts, but right next door to it. But the Cromwell plays a major role for sure. But then from an alteration perspective, the albitite potassic alteration plus the hematite alteration, that is a very, very important aspect. It makes the rocks incredibly hard. Albitite is a very, very hard mineral, but it also gives it this purpley reddish deep red tinge. That's from the hematite and the albitite alteration. And when you hit it with a hammer, you'll know whether it's got the alteration or not, because it pings. It's really hard.
That actually sounds super cool. Thank you for the free geology lesson. I appreciate that. All right, just moving on to an audience question. Just give me a moment. So using the scale on the map, it looks like these targets are fairly close together. Does this help your exploration approach? And does it potentially mean all of the areas are in the same geological setting? So essentially, does it help your exploration approach? And is being in the same geological setting a good thing?
It is, if it's the right geological setting. And in this case, we believe it is. So firstly, the fact that they're close together, yes, that's always a benefit. If you imagine that we were successful and we found economic mineralization at 2 or 3 or 4 of these prospects, if they were close together within trucking distance, if you talk in mine language, then we could set up a hub. It's called the hub and spoke model, which means that instead of each project needing to capitalize its own processing facility, etc., you don't need to do that. You do that for one, and you truck the rest to that one hub. Of course, Mount Isa is not unknown to this method of mining. The Mount Isa smelter for a long time has been the hub for the spokes of various juniors and even majors trucking their material there. So yes, it is a benefit for them to be close together, and the geology on the uranium perspective, as I said, so much of the right Valhalla geology repeats across our tenure. So the fact that the prospects are close together on copper and on uranium is definitely a benefit for us, for sure.
The rocks that go ping. Little Monty Python joke for everybody there in the know. Okay, so I've got another question that's come through. So just for everybody listening, I think we've got about another 5 minutes for questions. So please do pop your questions in while we're recording. If not, we will send them to Johan and hopefully be able to answer them at another time. But first and foremost, let's move to this one, which is how will Antares balance its copper exploration with the emerging uranium opportunity?
That is a tough one. So
okay,
we've got excellent exploration opportunities on both of the metals. And I am very bullish on both of them, to be honest. The world can't function without copper because we are all about electricity, and copper is how we get it to our house, etc. But uranium, I feel, is a crucial power source. The nuclear power generating abilities of uranium is something the world is adopting slowly and needs to adopt much more of because it's efficient and clean. So how we balance it, I suppose, will be one aspect will be the quality of the project. So if Conglomerate Creek, for example, if we do test it, which we will early next year, if that comes back with a large intrusion-related target, then of course that'll take precedence. But at a time like now, when we've got a lot of prospects, all or several of them at a similar level, then the market and the future, the outlook will play a big role. If the market is responding better to uranium results, for example, then that's better for the company and for its investors, and it allows us to add value to both. And that value allows us to explore better. So we would then pivot to uranium in that particular instance so that we could benefit the company and the project, because while the company is doing well, it allows us to raise money and explore better, where if we choose a commodity that isn't doing well, we can't raise money and we can't explore. So there's a little bit of there's nuance in there. Quality of the project is one, and then what the market wants certainly plays a role as well.
Just to sort of double down on what you said there before I get back to the listener questions, you're essentially saying here you've got a lot of really promising targets, but the market response will sort of help you decide, will help you decide where to target your exploration in each of its phases.
It's one aspect, yes, along with the quality of the target, for sure. As I said, if Conglomerate Creek if we drill it and it comes back with a few hundred meters at excellent copper grade, then that would be a very, very compelling story and difficult to walk away from.
It's funny I've just brought that up. So we've got a question that's just come in. Check this one out. Given the mix of copper and uranium in the portfolio, where do you see the strongest near-term value drivers for shareholders?
At this point, I'm leaning towards the uranium exploration.
Oh, okay.
In the near term now, we need to be aware that we can't overcapitalize on uranium. We can't go and spend all our money on uranium because at this point we can't extract it from the ground. We can't build a mine. Mm-hmm. But I think there is still room for the uranium tide to rise to raise all boats. And we have some extremely strong low-hanging fruits here, both at Queen's Gift and at Skevy, as we released today. So for us, it'll be a balance of where we can get the best bang for our buck in the short term, and I think Queen's Gift and Skevy uranium might be a strong contender there, while we keep doing work sort of at lesser spend to keep working up all the other prospects and projects so that we can pivot when necessary.
Alrighty, so we've probably got time for about 2 more questions. I've got one that's just come in here. Hang on, just give me a moment. Okay. Queen's Gift has obviously a large number of uranium targets with one priority identified. How advanced are these targets? And what's the timeline for a potential JORC update? Is that a bit too soon to be talking about a JORC update on this one?
Queen's Gift, no. Queen's Gift, we could do a JORC update this year. So Queen's Gift, for the listener that wrote the question, that's a single target. It has a few sort of mineralized lenses, but it's a single target and it's one resource at this time. So it is one of our low-hanging fruits, as I mentioned. And it is actually a drill target for us right now, which we are discussing as a company. And as I mentioned during the presentation, I'm looking forward to drill that with a program to validate and perhaps increase the size of the resource and then update the JORC 2004 resource up to JORC 2012. So very yes, this year is the answer.
That's certainly sounds exciting. All right, and I think we've got time for one more question, unless somebody sneaks a really, really good zinger in. But we'll go with this one for the moment. Mount Isa is considered one of Australia's premier mining districts. What gives Antares a competitive edge in this region compared to other explorers?
Our land holding and our projects. I don't know. Look, we don't have a resource in copper, for example, just yet, and we've got several mines to the east and all around us. But we've got fantastically prospective ground, and we've proven that now with a lot of field work. I think the Conglomerate Creek target, the copper target, the intrusion-related target, from a geological perspective, it is extremely compelling. I realize that from an investor's perspective, only once we put the hole into it does it have teeth or not. But until then, we've got the edge because we've got a team that's getting out into the ground, breaking the rocks, doing real geology on ground that has a lot to offer.
Listen, Johan, I think that's all the time we've got for questions today. Thank you so much for taking the time for this webinar. I love the fact that I learned that some uranium type-bearing minerals go ping when you crack them open. So I will be telling everybody that fact at parties. But also, too, just to sort of drill down on what you've talked about today, is you've clearly got some very exciting targets out in the main Isa region, one of my favorite regions in the country as far as I'm concerned. So I'm very looking forward to seeing what the upcoming drill season looks like and the upcoming exploration looks like. Any final words, or shall we close out the webinar here?
Oh, well, I'm just saying thank you very much to everybody. I'm sorry that I took so long. I didn't realize I was going to actually take half an hour. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your support. And in answer an additional short bit to that last question, we also have a fantastic board and management. The team is important, right? And I think our team has got some real credentials and have been proving it in Antares. So got the ground and got the people. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity. I hope you took something away from this.
Thank you so much for being here, Johan. It's been a great webinar, and I look forward to the next one.
Lovely. Thank you.